When it rains in Madrid at night, the city glows differently. The plaza stones grow slick and shiny, reflecting puddled gold and violet from streetlights, and everyone moves quicker, as if the drizzle offers secrets not meant to linger over. That night in late October, soaked through in a cheap black coat, I felt the city pressing against my skin, cold, indifferent, and beautiful. I watched the glass doors of the small gallery on Cal de San Vicente Ferrer slide shut behind me, and I felt that click not only in my ears but in my chest. Inside, I could still hear the laughter, the polite, strained kind that leaves a sting. The owner, Adela, had smiled as she handed my portfolio back, pages slightly damp with coffee rings at the edges. Raquel dear, she said, her voice cloying, Madrid is, well, it's not ready for this type of vision, sewing buttons onto shower curtains and calling it couture. No, go home, cariño. Maybe keep this little hobby for family. Her words scattered right through me, like a chill wind after a fever. I pressed my thumb into the portfolio, feeling the rough edge of linen, the dense clump of my love letter to color and shape, my affront to tradition and sameness. I shuffled away from the light, the rain mottling the paper and making everything inside heavier. By the time I reached the corner, smack between the glare of a closed bakery and a buzzing cerveceria, my heart burned with a familiar combination of fear and defiance. It was as if the stones under my feet were echoing the words of my own mother spoken months before. Design, Raquel, that's a joke, Hija. No one in this family wears feather hats except on Carnival, and you don't have Antonio's hands for tailoring. Come home to Vallecas, get a real job. Even now, years after that night, I can still taste the memory. My family's kitchen, all blanched linoleum and mugs with faded orange roosters. My father, eyes sad and guarded under bushy brows, laying the spoon aside so quietly, as if afraid to make things worse. My cousin Lola snapping photos of my failed designs with her phone, sending them to the family group chat, ironically captioned and ridiculed between recipes and football memes. The words ridiculo and discarada hung over me like rain clouds that never broke. That night I walked for hours, unable to face the dry, scraping quiet of my tiny studio. Instead, I wandered under awnings, peering into the yellow-lit windows of shops and apartments. People laughed, ate, argued in 3 languages at once. I saw a young woman removing her raincoat, a jewel green thing, inspiring, obviously expensive. My fingers twitched with ideas for pleats and contrast stitching, absurd things you could only attempt if you had the luxury of being taken seriously. A taxi sped by, and for a moment I saw myself in the blurred reflection of its window, coat sagging, eyeliner smudged, face gaunt. Raquel the foolish, Raquel the dreamer, my heart clenched. Fear has always had a peculiar flavor for me, the metallic tang of loss mingling with something sharper, a sting of hope so raw it almost hurt to sample it. A week passed in a daze. I pawned my grandmother's gold pendant for grocery money. The electricity bill came, crisp and clinical, and stared at me from the battered counter. My sewing machine clattered stubbornly each time I fed it fabric. Some nights I lay awake, listening to the rain, cursing myself for needing so much more than what I already had. At dawn one morning, just as the neighbor's rooster crowed, I made a decision so simple it felt like a kind of surrender. I would leave. Madrid, for all its lights and thumping pulse, was a closed door for me. My cousin Lola was the last to laugh as I packed a single suitcase under the skeptical gaze of my father. Even as I shut the door behind me, I heard her. She'll be back in a month, 2 at most. I'll save her a spot at the bakery. London was less forgiving than Madrid and colder, but the city was bigger, restless, full of strangeness that didn't have time to judge. I lived in shared rooms, sometimes with strangers whose names I never knew. I stole hours at public libraries, sketching designs I could never afford to realize. I worked for nothing at an atelier deep in Soho, sweeping threads from the floor, nodding and biting my tongue when the head tailor, Alice, sneered at my accent. But fear, when it runs out of places to hide, can turn to something else. Bite down long enough and you learn to taste conviction. Months rolled by, then years, small victories accumulated almost by accident. I learned to argue for my designs. I sewed secret samples on the weekends, selling them on Portobello Road to girls with bright hair, to old men seeking gifts for daughters who lived far away. My first full commission came from a stylist, an experimental piece for a magazine nobody read. Then a boutique owner picked up my jackets, then 2, then a dozen. The world cracked open, thin and bright at the edges. I sent money home, small bills folded carefully into envelopes. My father never wrote, but I heard through my aunts that he hung my magazine clipping on the kitchen fridge. Lola posted about her own bakery triumphs on Instagram, always careful to tag me when a local version of my ridiculous patchwork bag showed up at the flea market. Even through all this, Madrid hovered at the edge of my imagination, a ghost I couldn't shake. In moments of exhaustion, I found myself sketching the sloped roofs of my old neighborhood, almond blossoms from the park, the spinning skirt of a dancer seen through a cafe window. More than once, I dreamed of returning, portfolio in hand, daring the family, the city, to look me in the eye. When the invitation arrived, a trembling official email bearing the logo of Madrid Fashion Week, I almost dropped my phone. The words were simple: "Dear Senora Diaz, we are delighted to invite you to present your latest collection at Palacio de Cibeles." I spent the next days in a hush of near disbelief, hands shaking as I prepped line sheets and finalized looks. In the quiet of my London studio, I ran my palms over satins and raw denim and silk flocked with velvet, each piece a whisper of home and defiance stitched into the seams. It was the return journey itself that unsettled me most. The city pulled 1,000 memories from my head against my will: the bakery near my childhood school with the tiny sugared palmeras, the echoing halls of the Reine Sofia, the scratch of old bus tickets in my coat pocket. I emerged from Atocha station to sunlight, and for a moment I simply stood there, letting the sounds of Madrid, fast footsteps, snatches of street music, the bellow of a faraway vendor wash over me. Cibeles was a world away from my old life. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, a skeleton of glass and iron. My models were professionals, elegant, cool-eyed, clad in my vision. Unstructured coats with bold red linings, silk dresses blooming in electric teal and crimson, trousers pieced from odd angles. My name, in thick black letters, beamed down from every wall. My hands were ice as I pinned the last hem. I barely heard the organizers as they sent out the call to the audience. Nerves crawled up and down my back, mingling with the old taste of fear, now almost sweet on my tongue. I'd sent invitations, more out of obligation than hope. One for my parents, one to the house in Vallecas, scribbled, "Bring anyone who says I'll fail." A petty joke, but my hand had trembled as I pressed the stamp flat. The auditorium filled quickly: editors, influencers, local designers. Hunched in the first row was Lola, face unreadable, phone poised for photos. My father, shoulders broader than I remembered, wore his best shirt. My mother, lips pursed, gripped her bag with knuckles white. The lights dimmed. Music pulsed through the floorboards. The show began. Each look glided, bold and strange, down the runway. They were unapologetic, a riot of fabrics, textures, a nod to my grandmother's patchwork and to the slapdash glamour Lola had once ridiculed. When the crowd gasped, if they did, the sound felt half distant, like thunder in a neighboring valley. But it was at the end, final bow, spotlights dimming, that everything began to sharpen into focus. As tradition dictated, the models circled back, the music soared, and I stepped into the light, nerves vibrating in my throat. Flashbulbs blinked, my name echoed first once, then rolling up into applause. I saw my old teacher from design school, tears glistening, mouthing bravo. A Vogue editor scribbled notes furiously. And then, concrete proof arrived, unambiguous and public. The award, delivered by the deputy mayor, placed in my hands, shining for all to see. Cameras swept over my stunned face. "Raquel Diaz's Madrid," the presenter announced, voice ringing through the marble, reinventing the city's spirit with every thread. My mother's eyes at that moment, wide, brimming with something like awe or pride or a confusion she hadn't expected, met mine across the crowd. Lola's phone finally slid to her lap. She looked at me, not through a screen but face to face, her usual smirk replaced by silent astonishment. The applause lasted. It swelled into disbelief, then into something warmer, thicker. Acceptance, perhaps even respect. After the show, when the crowd had thinned and the models peeled off to their own celebrations, I lingered backstage, half numb. The fabric scraps on the floor seemed to hum with the energy of the night. I pressed my hand to the cool marble wall, breathing slowly, letting the moment settle in. I didn't expect anyone to seek me out. But a ripple of laughter, all too familiar, cut through the haze. Lola poked her head around the curtain, cheeks flushed, eyes shining. "Raquel," she started, her voice unsteady, "I thought you'd ruined the family name. Turns out you've made us famous." I laughed, unable to help myself. It only took a few thousand stitches and some rain. She shook her head. "Do you remember what Mama said about dreamers? She's crying in the corridor, by the way. Told the reporter you were always the stubborn one." My father stepped in, hands tucked into his pockets, gaze gentle but proud. "Hija," he said quietly, "we were wrong." You saw the city differently, and now I suppose so do we. Later, my mother's arms caught me in a rare, fierce hug. She whispered, "You made Madrid yours, Raquel. I just didn't understand what that meant." The next day, news of the award spread through Vallecas quickly. My old neighbors, the ones who scoffed when I left, pressed noses to cafe windows to watch the morning news. They saw my face, my name, proof playing out for anyone to see, a girl from their street now dressing the city itself. I visited the bakery at Lola's request, hands trembling just a little, each step marking a return. The bells jingled as I entered, heads turned, some faces openly curious. An old man from down the street, Don Emilio, looked me over, his skepticism softening into a lopsided grin. "La diseñadora," he said, tipping a cap. "About time you showed them." I took in the sights and smells that made up my childhood. The scent of flour, the clatter of rolling pins, sunlight on the counter. My designs were being discussed on TV in the corner. The woman on the screen called me daring and visionary. Lola smirked broadly. "Not bad for a shower curtain seamstress, eh?" It was surreal how quickly scorn becomes pride when success is no longer a dream, but something concrete, a statue, a certificate, a name in lights. It's easy to forgive people for doubting when you remember how dearly you doubted yourself. That afternoon, I walked through the old neighborhood past the market, under awnings the color of faded lemons. The city no longer felt like an adversary but a companion, sometimes bristling, always honest, capable of surprise. Children ran past, sparking laughter over my oversized blue coat, then pausing to shout "La diseñadora," as if announcing a parade. Their mothers watched with cautious eyes, then smiled back, approval slow but undeniable. Returning home for me wasn't a victory dance but something subtler, a known place made new. I found my father waiting by the kitchen table, the old pendant strung on a fresh chain, set carefully where the evening light could catch it. "For luck," he said, and pressed it into my palm. Years before, I'd left Madrid shrouded in rain and ridicule, a suitcase packed with fear and scraps of fragile hope. I stood now drenched in a different kind of light, the city's regard finally mine. Defiance had delivered me here, but it was persistence, quiet and patient, that allowed me to stay. Even now, when rain sweeps over the city and the streetlights shimmer, I remember what it felt like to be mocked, to tremble alone at the gates of acceptance. Madrid never promised me kindness, only the chance to return home transformed, and I took it.